Hello everyone. In this video we're going to be taking a look at an article from the Washington Free Beacon. Now this was written by Brent Scher, I hope I'm saying that right, and it was published on November 30th. WaPo, NYT lament autoworkers blaming GM, not Trump, for layoffs. Now, I find it funny when the elitist left, you know, like the ones in the fourth estate, or what they believe is their fourth estate, that they're part of government and all this other shit, because journalists, they really think that they're part of this some fourth estate and that they're from this elite class and that they're special. They don't like it when working class Americans don't think like them. They really don't. They hate that. They feel that everyone should think like them, that their way is the right way, and everyone else, they just think wrong. So, when you have these people not feel the way that they want them to feel, it upsets them. While critics faulted the president for failing to deliver what he promised, a number of workers were quick to exonerate him. Now, this is funny, because this comes down to the fact of GM and its viability. In all honesty, you have a manufacturer who produces products that people really don't want. All right, they literally have to use trickery to try to convince people that their products are good and that people want them. Because J.D. Power and Associates, they're part of an advertising firm. You know, they're owned by an advertising firm. And it just, if memory serves, it just happens to be the same advertising firm that GM uses. So how do you think they get these awards? It's not because their trucks are better than Ford. I mean, if they were, and they made trucks that people wanted, it would be GM being the best-selling truck in America. Or, actually, I believe the Ford F-150 is the best-selling vehicle in, like, the world or some shit. Or at least it was at one point. They would have that title, or have had that title, if it's no longer the case. But see, they don't. They produce cars that, I mean, good example, hybrids. You know, yeah, okay, GM's got a hybrid, but it doesn't really offer what people want. See, people buy a Prius, they're like hipsters, shit like that. You know, people who say buy other hybrids that are conventional cars, they want the hybrid, but they don't want the status symbol. They just want a car. And they're like, well, I'll be a little more eco-friendly. And GM isn't selling products that people really want. I mean, you see more foreign electric cars and, well, minus Tesla, of course. But, like, the Nissan Leaf and so forth. You know, you now have Smart only being electric here in the, you know, in general. That's all they're selling here in the United States. And people are buying those. You have foreign cars, you know, like the BMW electric car. You have, which GM never really got into the electric car thing. That's another thing that hurt them. They could have come up with a vehicle. It's like the idea of Ford. Okay, Ford getting out of the car market. That's because they're not producing cars that Americans want to buy when it comes to actual cars, besides the Mustang. You know, you have Dodge. They sell cars. For an American car company, you know, between the Challenger and the Charger, they actually sell some cars. You don't see that happening with Ford. Or at least anymore. I mean, minus the Mustang. I mean, people still buy those, but you don't have them producing cars that people want. I remember in the 80s, you saw Ford Escorts all over the road. You saw Ford Probes all over the road. You saw Ford Tauruses all over the road, or like their, you know, Mercury and equivalents. But you saw all these different Ford products all over the road. The American car market, people are still buying cars. They're just not buying American cars because they're not, American manufacturers aren't producing the cars that people want. And that's what happened with GM. So instead of looking at that, instead of blaming who is actually to blame, these leftists at the Washington Shitpost and New York Times, you know, fake news central, they wanted to blame Trump. Nearly identical articles from the New York Times and Washington Post this week lamented the idea that Autoworkers blamed General Motors for its factory closures rather than President Donald Trump. Well, heaven forbid. See, Trump's like, I'm going to keep manufacturing here. I'm going to keep the Autoworkers here. Well, if they literally are losing, business and have to make a business decision, there's nothing that he can control on that note. But they're figuring they can try to use that to go against Trump. And people are not that stupid. People who work at GM are seeing what's going on and are like, oh, well, they're not exactly running the company as best they possibly could here. So that might be a factor. They're not stupid. See, they think that the auto worker is a dumbed down individual that they can tell them how to think. And when that ain't the case, they get upset. First to the story was the Times, which on Wednesday ran the headline, GM, not Trump, is the real villain to some Ohio factory workers. A day later, it was the Post, which found that many hurt by GM cuts blame others, not Trump. Well, yeah, blame GM for it. GM is cutting jobs. They're closing factories. That's on them. That's not on Trump. He's not the one that's deciding that shit. He's not the one who is, dictating terms here when it comes to what GM's doing. Management's doing that. The board is doing that. People high up in the company are doing it. See, they don't want to admit things like this. They don't want to talk about things like this. Both outlets spoke with members of the Ohio community hurt by the news of GM's decision to close its Lordstown factory, and the findings were similar. People think GM would have moved operations out of the region no matter what Trump did, and largely credit him for putting up a fight for their community. Well, yeah, because he tried. I mean, when it comes down to it, yeah, you have a situation where GM's got to do what they got to do. I would hope they don't send it off to China, but, they could move down south. It's cheaper for them to manufacture down south. Look at all the companies that have plants in the south manufacturing, vehicles. You have Mercedes, you have Toyota, you have Nissan's down there too. You have Hyundai. You have all these foreign car companies that are producing cars in the United States for the United States market and abroad. BMW was shipping, what was it, the X5? I believe it was the X5. They were actually shipping the X5s out of the United States to Europe, which is kind of funny because you have them going, I'm buying a German car. And little did they know it was made by some dude in America. They think it's made by Hans and Franz, who'll get pumped up while building cars. But it ain't the case. They appreciate his efforts and help their industry and efforts to help their industry and see GM as the culprit. Well, of course, they're not stupid. The sentiment appears to have shocked the reporters who traveled to Ohio because the plant closure had the potential to be a political challenge for Trump. Yeah, see, they were expecting to be able to use this to go after Trump. And when it backfired, because they just assumed and showed up and found out otherwise, it just blew up in their face and they went, oh shit, we're kind of up a creek here. We really can't use this. The Post expressed frustration that Trump seemed to be able to promise the world, yet suffers little damage from supporters when he fails to deliver. When you look on the larger scale of things, not just one particular little town, like manufacturing region of the United States, like in Ohio, where the plant is located in the surrounding community. In other areas, he's done things on the note of jobs and manufacturing and such that are positive. What is Trump supposed to do? Hold the board members of GM at gunpoint and say, keep the plant open? Of course not. So what option does he have? It's not like he can really do much. The economic struggles here in Trumbull County, even amid a booming national economy, pose a potential political challenge for Trump, who built much of his 2016 campaign around the idea that he alone could turn the tide on generations of decline across the Rust Belt, wrote the Post. One of the reasons why the Rust Belt has been in decline is basically Bill Clinton. With the shit that he did in regards to China and signing NAFTA, because he was the one that actually signed it. Bush took care of a lot of it. Clinton, it was signed in on his administration. It allowed for the mass flood out of the United States into, well, flood wouldn't be the right term. The mass exodus of a lot of manufacturing in the United States to places like China, to Canada, to Mexico. And that really took a toll on the Rust Belt. It definitely did, because you're not going to... Because not only with, say, auto manufacturing, you had electronics manufacturing, you had different types of manufacturing. Because, the Rust Belt was known for manufacturing in general. So, it started with the idea of things being made with steel. So, your refrigerators and your washers and I'm talking like clothes washers, not washers like, you use around a bolt. But, yeah, so, and it just continued from there. And then, you had companies like radio manufacturers and television manufacturers and, electronics go into there. You had other manufacturers go into there. I believe at one time in Ohio, there was a Bell Labs or a Weston Electric, which are kind of the same thing. They're under the Bell moniker, Ma Bell, not Southern Bell, wannabe Bell, wannabe AT&T, like Ma Bell, AT&T type stuff. But you had this thing going on there, and all that stuff started moving out of that region, with, in part, like, not necessarily because of that, but you had, like, say, the electronics, you had foreign competition. You had American manufacturers that weren't keeping up with the times. They're still building wooden box TVs when people want the plastic ones, style-wise, stuff like that. And that kind of killed it. But you had a lot of factors that caused that situation. And they're trying to make it sound like these people bought into this idea that Trump was just going to fix it all overnight. Things don't work like that. They're not stupid. They watch things get... They watch things take leave from their communities relatively quickly in the 90s. At least, the people who were alive to see that in the, during the Clinton administration, watch things close relatively quickly, one after the other. And, they know it's to get things back on track, that it's going to take time. They're not stupid. And they know there's going to be, on the larger scale of it, a situation where they know that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. That's part of life. They understand this. That's why they are taking things the way they are. That's why they're not faulting Trump. It's kind of funny. It really is. I love this. Yet interviews with residents here this week show that few tie their region's continuing troubles to the president, who often seems able to promise the world, yet suffers little damage from his supporters when he fails to deliver. I just love how they worded that. It's fucking hilarious. It's like, we can't believe that. Oh, they don't sit there and go Trump bad. They should be going Trump bad. but they don't go Trump bad. We need them to go Trump bad. That's all they're thinking. The Times expressed similar frustration at the disconnect between the way the critics view layoffs and the way workers do. Well, because the critics feel that they have a better clue than the actual people who are there working at the plant, seeing what's going on, paying attention to it, realizing that time could be short. I mean, those other people, they're looking from the outside, looking in, thinking they got a clue. The Times goes on to write that critics said Trump seemed oblivious to the plant's struggles despite his promise to workers there. No, I don't think that's the case, but if you want to portray it that way at the Times, you're more than welcome to. I mean, just difference between what you're claiming and what's true is 9 times out of 10 these days, at least in regards to Trump, two totally different things. Workers the Times spoke to, however, said they were heartened by Trump's decision to directly combat GM's decision to close the factory. Well, yeah, he tried. I don't know how much he could do. Obviously not that much in this particular case. A similar sentiment was expressed by Times columnist Paul Krugman, who in a Thursday column complained that Trump supporters are, like the president, too ignorant to understand economics as well as he does. No, they understand economics. They also understand that GM isn't exactly doing that well on the note of sales right now. So they look at that fact and they understand that. They actually do have a clue. That's why they're not blaming Trump, because they look at what decisions GM has made and the results to them, and they're basing their judgment off of that. It really is that simple, too. But see, Krugman, he's one of those people who thinks he's got a fucking clue and his shit don't stink. He's basically, what sargonism is it? Worry knows better. Oh, God. Anyone know what sargonism that is? Put it in the comments, please. I think you'll know which one I'm talking about here. Because it goes along those lines of not as smart as he thinks he is. For at least some Trump voters, Make America Great Again was a promise to restore the kind of economy we had 40 or 50 years ago. An economy that still offered lots of manly jobs in manufacturing and mining, Krugman wrote. Unfortunately for those who trusted Mr. Art of the Deal, Trump never had any idea how to deliver on that promise. Well, no, that's not exactly correct in what you're saying here. Okay, it's not the fact of 40 or 50 years ago. All right, we're talking about before Clinton gave China favorable nation status, signed illegal treaties with China that he called trade deals because Congress didn't ratify them because they were treaties. The situation with NAFTA. Okay, so we're talking 80s. We're talking 80s and early 90s. Before all that shit went down. We're not talking, 1960s here. All right. We're not talking the 70s either. Because 40 years ago would still put us in the 70s. That's during Jimmy Carter's era. Okay, America was up shit's creek without a fucking paddle when Jimmy was in office, which is why he was a one-term wonder. Okay, he caused the price of a loaf of bread to go up dramatically. A gallon of milk, same deal, like Staples. Just because of inflation, he was a shitty president when it came to economics and stuff like that. His idealism overrode what he should have been looking at in regards to certain things. And he was a weak president and allowed for OPEC to dictate. That was his own thing. I mean, that was on him. And the economy sucked. So don't say 40 or 50 years ago, Krugman. And think that during Carter's term, shit was good. Because it wasn't. The real question isn't whether Trump will ever realize that he doesn't know how to MAGA, Krugman wrote, it's whether and when his supporters will figure it out. No, he does know how to MAGA. He is making America great again. That's why the stock market is doing as well as it is. That's why you've seen growth like you have under Trump that you didn't see under Obama, that now Obama is trying to claim as his. When he was like, oh, well, all you're going to see is like 1.8%. That's the new way here in the United States. You're not going to see any more growth than that piddly ass little joke of a percentage. You know, so you have a situation where these people are upset because Trump keeps winning. They keep losing. The American people are waking up. They're not blaming him for shit that's out of his control. And they wish that he would, because, you know, what's funny is they, like with Krugman, he talks about how he thinks how stupid Trump supporters are. You know, I mean, he's basically saying that when it comes to the economy. And here he is talking like that about these Trump supporters. And he's basically doing it just for the fact that they aren't buying into the bullshit. They don't see Trump as the reason for this, because he isn't. It's hilarious. I mean, these people in the press, these people in the fourth estate, or what they want to believe is the fourth estate, they honestly think that they can tell people how to think. I mean, what the hell is her name from MSNBC? She don't like the fact that she can't tell people how to think. Krugman clearly doesn't like the fact that he can't tell people how to think. They're all freaking out. And what gets them is, and that's why they're going, you know, you see platforms, you know, having people on them attack that are in the alternative media, okay, is because they're losing control of their narrative. They're losing control of everything. They're no longer viable. In an age when someone like myself can get on a laptop and actually, you know, do stuff like I'm doing right here. They can't compete, you know. Anyway, I've covered this well enough. I'm just going to leave things here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.